Welcome. I hope from the last lecture, which was a more general peep into the way life happens, let's start on the journey of brain. You know this man, Charles Darwin. Last lecture we were questioning whether we are different from other animals, even when the genes are same. So as it appears of whatever we know of brain, there are no new areas of brain which have evolved from chimpanzee to human beings in the 6 million years. But there is a difference in degrees and the quality and the way it has developed. So the areas which human beings have in the brain are also present in chimpanzee, although they may not be as functional or as complex as in us. And so, like Darwin said, the difference in mind between man and the higher animals is certainly of a degree and not of a kind. So, qualitatively we are on the same line, but the complexity varies. So, this is a universal fact if you look at it. Just go back to beginning of life, if mentally you can imagine there would have been one gene. Obviously, first gene would have been born somewhere. What was that gene doing? That gene was intelligent and smart enough to know that if I divide and I multiply, I will not get destroyed. Otherwise, rain would have swept it off, lightning would have destroyed it, floods, stones falling on it, it would have got crushed. But it multiplied and it survived. And since then, genes know that to multiply, to survive. So that is how all the human population and all other species increase. If you keep reproducing, there are more human beings, you will not get destroyed. So all that genes want is to keep the species continuing. But with the genes, something else came up, the nervous system. And this nervous system is present right from plants to silk cocoon to amoeba to even the simplest of the living beings have a nervous system. Simple, from simple to the more complex like human beings. So, there must have been a neuron also, the first neuron. So, the neurons do not multiply. Once they grow, once they are born, they are born. There may be repair in it, there may be differentiation in the shape and all that, but they do not, but neurons started firing. So, neurons once activated, your brain once get activated in your womb, it only shuts off when you die. It does not shut off in between, because if it shuts off, you are gone. So, what do the neurons do? Neurons cannot multiply, neurons have to modulate behavior. So, the genes reproduce, neurons promote behavior, that behavior leads to some consequences in the body and environment. There is continuous message sending to the inner chamber, all for what? To take the information from the environment and to adapt oneself to the environment, adapt the environment to oneself, all to survive. Why survive? Because genes want to survive and reproduce. Neurons act as a modulator, it keeps sending continuous messages and changes to genes, and that is how genes keep modifying. These are universal phenomena in all species. Now, look at it. You can, now some people, there is a lot of philosophical debate which went on, especially with Descartes, who said that right from Aristotle's time, some people thought that it is all mind, it is all consciousness, there is a soul. Nobody thought of brain in the sense of a structure. It is Descartes who said that mind is different and body is different. We do not know whether he did an error or not, although there is a lot of writing which goes on which says that it is foolish to separate them. But for many years, believing on this, the research went on. There was a group which was looking into the structure, and there is a group which looks at the behavior. If you look at psychology, although psychology still dictates our research, because the behavior of human beings was analyzed by psychologists and they gave the definitions of the psychology. Now, even when we do physical research of brain, we still take definitions from psychology. The precursor of psychology was philosophy, precursor of science was also philosophy, physics, the precursor was philosophy. So, all these people believe that there is a mind, maybe consciousness, which exists separate from brain. So, you have to analyze. So, that is the most general way of looking at life. Come down to the brain. There is a pattern neural activity as it is written here. Then there are non-neural structures like other part of body, or in the brain there is a fluid and there are other cells and blood vessels and all. Neuronal growth come down further. It comes down to a single neuron or cell. Then there is go within the cell. There is a biochemistry, there is protein synthesis and genes. This is ultimate reductionist thing. This is what I was telling you, the way it happens. The neurosciences are being studied right from extreme reductionism, we are talking about genes, to behavior, which is the most general thing. So, there is a behavior, there are definitions which take behavior, then you go down to brain cells, then you do imaging, you see the big brain structures, this area specialized for certain functions, there are certain areas specialized for other functions, your visual system, auditory system. Go down further, you find 10 to the power 15, 10 to the power 11 neurons with 10 to the power 15 synapses, doing 10 to the power 18 operations per second. Some people want to go down further, look at each and every neuron and the initial electrical activity, go down further, you look at nucleus, how the signaling goes down there. Don't get overwhelmed by these terms. I am just trying to tell you right from. So, if I raise my hand like this, or if I raise my hand like this is called handshaking. This is a behavior. Psychology would call it communication or greeting. Now, come to level, this is level 1, go to level 2, then you find what is moving my hand, muscles getting signal from nerves. Level 3, nerves getting order from the brain. Level 4, why does brain want to greet this person? That is a social need which has come out from within the brain. One further level, which area of the brain is giving this social need? Another level, okay, what are the neurons which are firing there? At what range of frequency they are firing? Another level, which synapses and which neurons are actually connecting to each other? Another level, which chemical went between two neurons to signal this? Another level, what genes actually want people to communicate? See, it's already, and I have missed few of these levels. So, you really do it from behavior to total basic reductionist. This is the range of neuroscience. So, you can pick up whatever you want, and that is how plethora of data has come. So, these are the approaches you study brain. Animals and humans, there is anatomy, physiology, track tracing. You can always revert back to this slide, just have a look through this. Focal brain lesions. Brain lesions are, if there is a brain damage to a certain area, there is a certain behavior which is altered. This was the initial days when people used to study. We found that, okay, people are behaving abnormally, and when they die, you do a postmortem, you find a certain area which is damaged. You correlate with that behavior with this damage, which has been replaced by imaging. You must have heard words like MRI and CT scan. And so, what was being done at postmortem many years back, decades back, is being done by imaging in CT scan. So, somebody can't move a hand, it's a paralysis, you get a CT scan done, it's on the left side, you find some damage on the right side of the brain. We all know this, opposite sides control. So, these are just broadly. Then there is something called functional neuroanatomy. The basic question which I was trying to raise when I was showing you the previous slide is that what is important? Is the structure important? or is the function important? Functionalist will believe that is the function. People who are reductionist will believe it's the structure. Is the history important or is geography important? Now, history and geography, I am just giving a simile. History can alter geography, geography can alter history. Because if people get stuck in some area of the world, and the way they live alters the history, and the way they live alters the geography also. But the best example has been given by computer. Computer has a well laid structure of silicon chips and all, and it transmits the movement in whatever 0 and 1 binary way of doing it. But when you put a software into it, the software really, you are not bothered about the hardware at that point. You are just bothered about the software, and software really, whether it connects to the hardware, although the hardware is running the software, but for functioning you are really not bothered about the hardware. Some people say this, that this is the best analogy, but it has a flaw. Brain is not like that, because once the computer architecture is laid down, you can keep loading software and keep running the software. You do not have to keep altering the basic computer structure. Brain, with every experience, with every action, it is the structure also which keeps altering little bit here and there. With every experience, with every memory which goes in, with every expression of your emotion, with every expression of your action, it is. So, the structure and function in the brain are almost intertwined. In computer, you can remove the software and just give the machine, and you can load whatever you want. In brain, you can never take off the software. You can never, right from the birth, when we will talk about the development of brain later in the presentation, then you will realize what is happening there. It is so intertwined that the structure is formed by the function. Lot of this function comes from environmental interaction. The brain does not grow. So, there is a genetic template which is common. So, brain, the genetics grows the basic structure of the brain in the womb, and then it is all the environmental reaction. So, the structure and function is very difficult. So, we talk of functional neuroanatomy, we talk of localization, we talk of networks. We have to look how the brain interacts with the external world. What are the states of mind? You all know what different states of mind are. You are happy, you are sad, you are sometimes more aware, sometimes you are just groggy, sometimes even when you have opened a book, your mind is not there. Sometimes you are thinking about things which are nowhere in your radar. Memory and emotions. We will talk about memory and emotions in the second, third week when we talk about it. But just look at it. What are you? If you try to analyze yourself, what are you? If I take away all your memory of all your childhood, everything which happened, where do you stand? It's gone. It's gone. So, human beings are actually existing in space and time, if you look at it broadly. But space and time, and they have a sense of continuity, because there is a lot of fixed structure. Imagine if you are if you have to live say at 2 feet above the ground, and the earth keeps rotating under your feet. So, today you will be in Kanpur IT, tomorrow by that time you look down, you will be in New York. What will life mean to you? There is no continuity. A lot of continuity of your life comes from memory. So, you have to look at how our brains uses previous experience to modify behavior, and your memories also modify your behavior. Just to give you a simple example, if you have had a tiff with somebody in your life and you have had a bad experience, your mind says, okay, this person is not good. Maybe this person meets you after many years. My guess is, for most people, even before that person speaks anything, he may have changed and he may be talking good of you, but your bad memory will trigger. It will start signaling, and you will already become anxious and tight, hoping that, oh man, again we are going to fight types. And that is what people do. People assume, in a top down thinking, people assume that okay, this person is always going to say this. So, even before that person speaks, you have already fitted the whole thing into your previous experience and you have already reacted. It may not be true, and half the time you find it is not true. But it all requires a certain amount of detachment to analyze. So, in the true sense, if you ask whether people can be objective, you understand what objective is. People say, no, why are you thinking and why do you carry assumptions? Why do you carry this? You should be objective in analyzing. Objectivity is very difficult to practice. Very few people can practice it because it is your memory and emotion which are already firing even before the event has happened. Like you go to examination, and all of us know when you go to real routine examination, you do not bother, but if it is a real tough examination of your entrance or your JEE or your IAS interview or something for a job, you have this small butterfly in the tummy. Why is that? Your brain is already firing. It is already telling, oh boss, if I am asked a question which I do not know, what will happen? So, you already raised your stack. So, this raising stakes is a habit of brain, but it is still doing it. And believe me, when I ask you whether you are doing it, whether you have a control over it, and why are you getting anxious, you will suddenly be jolted. Most of us say, hey, why am I thinking like this? It is not important. Why am I have studied well or whatever, even if I do not get a job, it is not the end of the world, you know this, but your mind is firing it because because you have come just now, for whatever age you have, mind has been there for 6 million years or more than that, and the modern mind has been there for 2 lakh years. It has tuned itself for what? For survival. So, let us look at this. First look at the structure and then we will think about rest of the things. But it was always not so. The way I am telling you, brain is this structure, modular. Right now, if you ask me, the brain is a parallelly distributed modular structure, but at the same time it has some hierarchy in the decision making. Its structure is made such that this is the function it will generate. If the structure of the brain changes, the function will change as it stands now, but it was always not so. This research has come in the last, psychology has been there for 150 years, this research has come in last 30-40 years. But in the last 10 years, the whole thing is going by leaps and bounds because of technology, because mathematics has come in, physics has come in, a lot of modulation is going on. At one point of time, people used to think that site of thinking is heart. Poets still think the same. Dil dukh gaya, we call in Hindi. So, the poetry comes out of heart, but it cleared. Then it came to this, there is a system of ventricles in the brain which have fluids. People are not sure whether it is the brain or it is the ventricle, and then as we moved on, now we are clear it is brain, more or less, and neuroscience is more clear that even the mind is brain. So, mind is in all this presentation, we will use mind as an emergent property of brain. We are not going to treat it separately, also, although the definitions are from psychology. This is one of the images which is from PET scan, where now we have technology which can tell us which part of brain gets activated while you are hearing words. There was a gal. Now, gal brought out some interesting concept called phrenology. He said, he was the first man to give this idea that there are functions in the body of movement, of hearing, of listening, of watching and all this, they have certain specific localized area in the brain. But this was fine. He went over the board and he said all these functions and areas can be judged by bumps on the head. So, what he was saying is the organ of mind, perfect. The mind is composed of multiple distinct innate faculties, perfect. We also know this. Because they are distinct, each faculty must have a separate seat or organ in the brain. partially true, but he all started correlating with the bumps. You see the last thing. So, it is a picture which says that this function is happening, there must be a bump here. Phrenology is was still being practiced in US, like lot of other things are being practiced, astrology and this and that, but and US government is smart enough to tax it. So, whoever practices phrenology will have to give a tax, but this was the basic idea of functionality of brain. In fact, if you look at the modern MRI and imaging technique, they are just doing this. They are trying to look into what area of brain gives rise to what function. So, the origin was, we should be thankful to Gall, although he was doing something else. But the big flip came with Purkinje's cell. This is Purkinje cell is found in an area called cerebellum. I will show you that. And then they realized that neurons are the actual basic unit of the brain. These two people are very important, Santiago Ramon Cajal and Golgi. By this time they had developed the stains. Now Golgi said, and they shared the Nobel Prize, Golgi said, using the same Golgi stain Cajal found out, that there are neurons and there are multiple of them, as you see in the picture, and they are attached in the form of a network, which is fine. Then this is called syncytia, SYNCTIA, that they are attached like this, and then they are more attached like the wall to wall, like a huge mattress. But Cajal said they are not attached like a mattress, they are not attached like one side by side. He said they are distinct units, each one of them is a distinct unit and they form a network. Cajal proved to be right, but once it was thought that okay, wonderful, if it is a distinct unit, how do they get connected? Sherrington was working on the reflex action. Now, this is a reflex action. All right, if you see the red and green arrows, this is a spinal cord. This whole structure is a spinal cord, this within the circle. So, this is one nerve which goes out to the muscle and one which brings the sensation. So, if there is a pin prick, suppose in your hand, and your hand moves like this, so the signal would go from this touch to a spinal cord, part of this signal will go to the brain. So, the brain will know the pain or whatever, and your hand will move even without knowing it. This is a reflex action. Sherrington brought out the idea that there are so many neurons, suppose and this whole one nerve cannot go like this. So, what Sherrington did, he probably brought out this concept of synapse, that they may be, if there are neurons are separate structures, how do they connect? They connect through what you call synapse. This was a great leap, and now we know the brain looks like this. It is composed of cells called neurons, which are the main cells, and they are glial cells, which are supportive cells. Neurons are, I will show you what a neuron looks like, but the whole brain, if you look, it is not grey, there are two areas. One is called a grey area, grey cells, grey matter, and another is white matter. The grey matter are the bodies of the neurons. Let me see if I can show you a neuron and come back. This is the typical neuron. You see the yellow structure, the body of the cell. This is a nucleus, that blue one. This whole thing, tail which comes out is axon, and the wing like structure which are going up are called dendrites, and then there are microtubules and so on and so forth. looking at the whole thing, it's and between the two, like this, you see this structure? This is synapse. This structure is synapse. Now, this is a axon, this structure, axon coming to the other neuron. This ends on this dendrite of this. So, dendrites are like antenna. Dendrites are like antenna on which the axon comes, and this whole small thing is called synapse. This again you can see it here. So, this is a cell body, these are dendrites, this is a axon. Axons also ovorizes or divides into small terminal dendrites also. I will tell you why it happens. All right. So, this is one neuron, and to just give you the idea, there are 10 to the power 11 neurons in the brain, the cell body of which are arranged in the grey matter, and the axons come down to form the nerves. Some of them are very long, some of them are small which end in the brain itself, some of them come down to spinal cord, some of them from a spinal cord they go to, there are the cell bodies are also found in deeper structures, but largely you will find it in the cortex. Cortex is considered to be the brain, and so it is arranged in 6 layers, right. Let me show you these 6 layers. So, these are cell body, this is a single pyramidal neuron which is in the layer 5th. So, what goes into the brain, the sensations are mostly in these layers 2, 3, 4. What the brain directs to do starts from the layer 5, which is a pyramidal cell. Do not burden your head too much with it, but you should understand what is happening. And layer 6 leads to some deeper structure. So, it is a huge network of input coming and output going, not only within the brain, but outside the brain to nerves, to spinal cord, which gives direction to the other parts also, and then this is white matter which forms the nerve. Now, imagine these are the columns, and they are arranged in columns, functional columns. There is no distinct sheet around each one of them. The columns are like this, they are small mini columns, they are micro columns, then they are mini columns, and then they are micro columns. Just to give you the dimension, mini column is 0.03 millimeter, it has a number of neurons as 10 to the power 2. Then this cortico-cortical, within the this cortico column are within the brain, 10 to the power 4 neurons, macro column 10 to the power 6. These unite to form a region of the brain where we talk of functionality. There is something called Brodmann area. Brodmann was the person who, using a certain stain, looked at the brain and could define wide areas which have been numbered from 1 to 44 and 56 and all, to which different functions have been assigned. Region, it increases 10 to the power 9. Lobe, lobe means, I will just tell you the broad structure of frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and then their hemisphere, 10 to the power 11, which is half the brain. So, when I am talking about the brain, let me show you a picture of the brain. This is the brain broadly. So, you have a frontal lobe, you have a parietal lobe, you have a temporal lobe, you have occipital lobe, and this structure is cerebellum. And you have two structures like this. This is from the below, but if you look at the brain, it has two half united, which look alike, united by this thing called corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is like a band which goes between two half of the brain. You must have heard of right brain, left brain. There are different functions assigned to it, which is partly a myth also. Artists have right brain better working than left brain. All that is a myth, I think. But this is the gross anatomy of the brain. It has definite lobes, it has two halves. This is the brain, it looks from inside. Again, frontal lobe is front, temporal lobe is side, parietal lobe is here, occipital lobe is behind. There is a structure called cerebellum, which is important for movement and all that. And this is the pons and medulla oblongata, which controls respiration and heart and everything. And then it goes down to spinal cord. So, this is the gross brain anatomy. I will stop at this, and in the next lecture we will continue this and see how all this turns into the functioning. So, we do not have to bother about anatomy too much. If you got a gross idea, you can always read, but next time we will look at the function. Thank you.